When you practice painting clouds, you get to practice watercolor timing. You get to practice color mixing. You don't need to worry about a lot of complex drawing. In fact, most of the time when I paint skies, I don't draw anything. It gets your brushes going, it gets you looking and observing, and it's a fantastic way to improve in so many skills. Today, I'm going to walk you through each step and show you everything I've learned between this painting and this painting. One thing you'll notice when you observe clouds is there's so much information here. We like to think it's just a white puffy thing with a blue background, but you can see a lot of value changes here and subtle differences between light and dark and a real wispiness to the clouds. The first thing I do is wet down the back and the front of the paper. Working wet into wet is perfect for painting clouds. And the more practice you get painting wet into wet, the better you will understand how wet your paper is, the paint consistency on your brush, and it's just good practice overall. The first thing that I'm doing here is laying in some light tone where the clouds are going to be. I'm using some lavender with just a little bit of raw sienna in it. And if you don't have lavender, mix up Ultramarine Blue and something like alizarin crimson or rose madder permanent. You can get a nice lavender color that way. I'm starting really light, and as always, I'm painting light to dark. I come back in with a stronger mixture of the same thing. I've added a little bit of neutral tint to the lavender and raw sienna, and now I'm getting some of those richer values in the clouds, and I'm slowly building up the strength as I go. Still painting wet into wet. The paper's still quite damp at this stage. I like to take a paper towel and push down and lift off some of the areas where I know the brighter parts of the clouds are going to be. And I do this for two reasons. One, it lifts off some of the paint that I laid down in those areas. Two, it dries the paper. So when I go in and paint the blue around the clouds, I can get some harder edges in those areas. Now I'm coming up here and we're finally getting into the blue of the sky. And for that, I'm using some cerulean and some cobalt blue. The paper is still damp, and so I'm getting a nice soft transition between the clouds and the blue of the sky. I'm taking my time looking at my reference photo, picking out parts of the clouds I want to leave, covering everything else up. Now you'll see a little color change when I get down here into the sky. This is all blue. I've mixed in a little bit of cobalt teal blue here. It has more of like an aqua green color to it, still negatively painting around bits of clouds. And it's really a fun process. Start with your cloud bigger than you think it should be. I really was careful when I was painting around this. And the reason is when you start to negatively paint around clouds, if you're not careful, you'll keep going and going and you'll have a tiny little sliver of a cloud. What I'm doing is adding even more rich blue to the sky. This is an Escoda Perla size 18 brush, so it's a synthetic brush that doesn't hold a ton of water. You want to be really careful at this stage of the process, because if I came up here with a mop brush that was fully loaded, it would just bloom and destroy the wash that I've already laid in. You'll notice when you look at a sky, it's a deeper, richer blue at the top, and it's more diffused generally as you get down to the horizon. After I lay in that initial blue at the top of the sky, I come back in with even more rich paint. So I'm using more cobalt blue, a little bit of neutral tint to even raise the strength of that a bit more. Now things are looking pretty good at this point, but if we go back over to the reference photo, we can see some darker shadows on the underside of the cloud. I need a little bit more information to make this cloud feel realistic. I'm coming in using some neutral tint, some cobalt blue, a little bit of raw sienna, and I'm painting the underside of the cloud. It's a little darker than the blue of the sky. So I'm carefully dropping this in. The paper is still pretty damp, but I'm starting to get some harder edges. I'm really paying attention to the moisture on the paper, the moisture on my brush, and this is why this is such a good practice. The more we can get a handle on that, that is going to help you when you paint any scene, when you get a better understanding of paint consistency and watercolor timing. It's starting to come to life even more when we get this richer value on the underside of the cloud. Now I've cleaned my brush off. I'm pushing down and I want to soften some of these edges. I don't want hard edges all over the place. I still want to keep that soft, gradual feeling of form to the cloud. So this is where I'm doing a little bit of adjusting. I'm using another Escoda Perla brush. This is a size 12, and it's a damp, clean brush. And I'm coming up here and just softening some of those edges. You see, there's a speck of white that I left here. I like that, but I want to soften that edge as well. When I paint skies, I'm looking to find a balance between soft and hard edges. Typically, I'll leave a few hard edges on the main cloud where I want the main focus to be in the sky. And everywhere else, I'll try to soften those edges. So I'm pushing down with my brush, just lifting off some of that to give me a soft edge. Now I'm coming back in with a paper towel. There are little bits of highlights that I can lift out, bring a little bit of light back to some of these clouds if I've covered things up. If I feel like the sky needs a little more information, this is a good way to get it, by taking a Kleenex or a paper towel and pushing down and lifting off. I added a little bit of information there and taking off some of the pigment and refining things with this method. It's almost as if I've drawn with pencil or charcoal and I'm using a kneaded eraser to make that fine point and lifting off some of those highlights. I'm doing the same thing here with a paper towel. Now it's really starting to read like a complex mass of clouds where they're overlapping and there's softer and harder edges. There's a real wispiness to the clouds that I'm hoping to capture, and by lifting off some of these areas and softening edges, I can make that happen. And that is a look at the finished sky. I recommend practicing skies as often as you can. It really adds a wonderful element to your landscape scenes, to anything that you paint that includes a sky. Next week, I'm gonna show you how I painted this porch light scene. Be sure and subscribe. I come out with a new video every Monday. If you're struggling in painting watercolor or just looking to reach that next level in your painting, I have a powerful resource for you that I send to all of my students. It's a quick guide to help them get started in their painting process. Take a look at this. I walk you through the crucial planning phase of your painting that will help you understand what you're going to paint first, second, and third. The planning is really so important, especially in watercolor. This medium is harder to correct. It's so immediate. So having that plan is very important. I send you a PDF that you can download. You can have it on your phone. You could print it out. You can download this right now before you start your next painting. All you have to do is follow this link here and download my 5-step guide to planning a successful watercolor painting.